everyone, and welcome to the Ontario Caregiver Organization's webinar series. These webinars bring together caregivers and subject matter experts to explore topics of interest to caregivers. We do this to support and engage chosen family, friends, and neighbors who are caring for someone. I'm Marnie Capacci, and I will be your moderator for today. We begin this gathering by acknowledging the Indigenous peoples of all the lands that we are on today. While we meet on a virtual platform with people joining us from across the province, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the importance of the land which we call home. The land I am standing on is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe peoples, as well as the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, the Mississauga Nation, and the Huron-Wendat Nation, many of whom continue to live and work here today. This territory is covered by the Williams Treaty and Treaty 13 and is within the land protected by the Dish-was-once-Foon Wampum Agreement. Today, this gathering place is home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples, and acknowledging reminds us that our great standard of living is directly related to the resources and friendships of Indigenous peoples. As team members, we are learning about the lands from which we work, exploring how we can be meaningful allies, and how we can support the recommendations from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. We do this to reaffirm our commitment and responsibility in improving relationships between nations and to improving our understanding of local Indigenous peoples and their cultures. We invite you to take a moment to reflect on the land where you are. And if you are not familiar with that, we will be sharing an interactive map that tells you which traditional territory your city or town sits on. So our webinar today is called Discover the Healing Power of Journal Writing. And journal writing is and can be a form of self-care for caregivers at any stage of their caregiving journey. Donna Fitzgerald, a former caregiver, learned the value of writing and journaling to develop self-awareness. She will explain how journaling can enlighten and enrich our purpose and meaning. In this webinar, Donna will also share how journaling can be a path to healing and rediscovering oneself. After being a caregiver to her late husband for 6 years as he battled ALS and passed away in 2004, Donna made a commitment to be of service to others. Since her husband's death, she has volunteered in her community supporting families and caregivers for the past 16 years. Her volunteer work includes the Kingston Chapter of the ALS Society, the Neuromuscular Clinic in Kingston, and Hospice Kingston. She received the 2007-2008 Volunteer Excellence Award from ALS Ontario. Donna is the co-author of Creative Healing Through Transformation, Conversation with My Soul with Tanya Hamensley, and its companion journal. She continues to offer support to those who want to heal and reconnect with their inner voice, to have meaningful conversations with their soul. Welcome, and thank you for joining us today, Donna.
Thank you, Marnie, for that lovely introduction. And I'd like to also thank the Ontario Caregivers Organization for the opportunity today to come speak to you all about journal writing and the healing power of journaling. Welcome to all of you today that have taken the time out of your busy schedules to come spend an hour with me. And as I go through this presentation on journaling, I'm honored to be in the presence of all of you that give so much of yourselves to care for those you love. All I ask that you for the next hour is to take off your caregiver hat and put that aside for the next hour and take a deep breath in and simply be here as yourself. Let's get started and learn a little about journaling and the power of healing. I'll share a little about my caregiver journey. As Marnie said, my husband was diagnosed with ALS in 1998 and passed away in 2004. And we were a young family. My daughter was 5 and my son was 11 at the time. And through that 6 years, it was an eye-opener for sure, because I was very naive in the beginning of what caregiving was and what it would entail. I was a full-time employee and raising our family, and my husband was able to participate in the family life for the first 2 years, and then he was full care from 2 years till the time of his passing. And in that time, I learned to navigate all the changes that we were experiencing in his disease, but also in our daily lives, as every family has their routines and commitments and responsibilities. So after about 4 years of caregiving, and I had to work full time, so my husband was home for the first 4 years and then ended up in Providence Care here in Kingston for the last 18 months of his life, simply because I had caregiver's burnout. And unfortunately, in the beginning of caregiving, no one really sat me down and said, you know, this is going to be one of the hardest jobs that you've ever done, and that you need to look after yourself as well, put yourself on the list. And as a mother and wife and woman, I put everyone else's needs ahead of mine, as most people do when they're caring for the people they love. And it creeps up on you. And then 4 years into my caregiver role, I found myself in caregiver burnout, which is so subtle and happens so little by little over time that when you hit that wall of caregiver burnout, it was quite a shock, actually. 4 years into caregiving and working full time, raising our family, caregiving, and having kids in activities, and not realizing I hadn't slept in over 2 years because my husband needed to be rolled over every night, and certainly wasn't eating properly. I wasn't exercising, and I didn't really think of myself as needing support and a healthy way of navigating my own emotions and stress through caregiving. I was there to support my children and my husband, but I wasn't there to support myself. And it was a terrifying place to be with caregiver burnout when I realized I had lost Donna. I didn't know who Donna was. I knew all my roles in life. I knew I was a caregiver, a mother, a wife, an employee, sister, all those roles that you play in life. But Donna disappeared. I was like that M&M without the center. I was just a shell. So I had to make some hard decisions, and self-care was one of those. And I had to reintroduce into my life some foundational practices because I had lost myself. I literally didn't know Donna anymore. So I had to make some hard decisions about taking time for myself, journaling, eating properly, trying to get enough rest, and which is hard when you're caregiving for someone who has no mobility, no speech. And so when I went to therapy to help me navigate my own grief, anticipatory grief, and just the challenges of just everyday living, and trying to maintain giving 100% at work when really I gave 100% maybe of what I had left in that day. I was introduced to journaling, and the therapist said, maybe if you could start journaling and expressing those emotions that are in you're keeping within yourself, that you could help to release all that emotion and help to gain more space. The global pandemic came 2 years ago, and I was sitting there over 60 at home, didn't know what to do. That I just knew that caregivers would need some kind of support through this. They didn't have access to healthcare support groups. So I decided to write a book, self-publish a book about journaling and the steps and worksheets that I took to reconnect with who I was, and to be used as a tool, either for caregivers to use on their own or in support groups. And that gave me a purpose through the early pandemic days to focus my experience and hopefully to support others in the future. And that's how about the workbook and the companion journal came about. And I had worked with Tana Hemsley, who had the worksheets, which I had worked through, but I have reworded them to be into a language that is more for just someone who's starting out. And so the rest of this talk today is going to be about the why, the what, and how to use journaling to benefit your daily living. So I'm just sharing a picture of my family. This was taken probably 2004, the summer of 2004, and Cliff passed away in November 2004. Cliff died at 49, and our daughter Shannon was 11, and our son was 18. So I just wanted to share a picture of our family, because my caregiver role and the inspiration for these two workbooks were from my caregiver experience and all the lessons and growth that I gained in that time. So discovering journaling, studies have shown that journaling helps support anxiety, stress, and depression. Also, the following benefits: calms the mind, releases feelings of stress, gives a voice to your own loss and grief, become more self-aware, navigate transitions within the caregiver role, creating a daily ritual that will help to stay connected to your own needs, support self-care and health benefits. And once I was introduced to journaling, it became a release for me, or a time for me that I could just have a voice. As I said, I was in a place of caregiver burnout, and I had all these emotions and feelings on top of supporting my family, and I just really didn't know where to go and what to do with all that emotion, because I certainly didn't want my family to see that I was struggling, because I was trying to be strong for them, and the decisions that I would need to make for them. As everything progressed, I still had to be under the awareness that I was a caregiver, but after my caregiver role, I still had to raise my family. So as I moved forward, I had to realize that I needed an outlet for myself to continue on my path beyond caregiving through grief to reestablishing a life after my husband's passing. And how did I get started in my caregiver role? I chose a time of day that I wouldn't be interrupted, chose an area that you feel safe and comfortable in. I had a comfortable chair, side table, light, soft music, a cup of tea or coffee. I'd always send it, in the beginning, I set a timer for 10 minutes. I'd take a few deep breaths, relax, write down my thoughts, or doodle. Thoughts can be random, be gentle with yourself. Sitting still will be uncomfortable in the beginning. This is how the process of journaling is, but in the beginning, I can explain to you how it felt for me in the beginning. I'd get up earlier than, probably about 15, 20 minutes earlier than my day would start, because I was trying to incorporate it into an already hectic and busy day. And for the first while with journaling, it wasn't really even about the journaling aspect. It was actually getting used to sitting still and being with myself, because I was going in so many directions. I was going to work, I was looking after my husband, the kids, whatever was going on, it was chaotic. So for me to actually sit in a chair with a side lighten and a table and a cup of coffee didn't feel comfortable at all, because I wasn't used to being that still. And it took practice just to even get into the comfortable ability just to sit. So it probably took me a couple of weeks, and I had the journal beside me, and I would just have my pen and I kind of doodle down, and, just getting used to actually being calm and sitting still was a practice in itself. And then the journaling started to come from that. And the more I sat and made that commitment to that 10 minutes a day, I was able to start to write down, oh, I'm feeling this way today, or I've got this to do today. So it was kind of like a reflection on what my day was. And not everyone's going to be able to write. It depends on if you're a list maker, you may just want to do bullets and just write down words or thoughts. And in the beginning, I'm sure that I wrote down, "This is ridiculous," 100 times. I don't have anything to say. My mind is mush. I'm blank. I can't even think, let alone write down anything. But I stuck with it. And the more time I spent, the more comfortable I got with myself. And I realized I do have a voice, and I do have things that I need to express to others, to make it more clear that I can to heal and provide for myself the foundational practices that I need to stay healthy, to maintain and continue to be a caregiver, because I was doing this 18 or 2 years before my husband passed away. So I still needed that outlet to create more clarity, more ability to have a connection with myself, to know what I needed to be healthy, strong, and to support my children and my husband. And journaling helped me immensely in that regard. In the beginning of your introduction to journaling, you may experience the following feelings or emotions. This new daily ritual will become easier and rewarding as time passes by. You'll probably experience fear of emotions being released, fear of someone reading your journal, not knowing what to write in a journal. I feel self-conscious. Is it selfish to take time to journal? What will others think? I don't have time. I experienced everything on this list. My biggest one is fear. I thought once if I sat down and started to express all the emotions that I've been holding down for so long, that it would be just like a floodgate and it would open up and I wouldn't be able to stop. And that wasn't the reality. The mind and who you are within yourself, you'll release as much as you can manage at the time. And it was a good way to release, and then putting it on paper and being able to read it and kind of looking at it from a different perspective, not what's going around in your head all the time or you're trying to push down. You're actually getting a different view of those emotions and what's happening in your life. And the fear of someone reading my journal, I didn't really have a fear. The kids were young, they wouldn't have found it. And I always kept it in a place where no one would see my journal. I'm a journaler that destroys my journals when I'm finished. Some people will keep them and review them. But for me, I would finish a journal and then I would burn them. For me, it's been a ritual of releasing all that emotion and just letting it go. And through COVID, it wasn't really an easy thing to do, to burn them. So I did take 70 pounds of journals to get shredded one day. And so you can see how much I journal. I journal every day, and I have journaled every day for the last 20 years. And then you might, what am I going to write in my journal? And the wonderful thing about journaling is there is no right or wrong. You just write the thoughts that come into your head. They don't string together. They don't have to make sense. It's just a matter of releasing what comes out, what comes up. And in time, you'll be able to, this is a practice that will take time, but in time, you'll start releasing and writing more, and it won't always be disjointed. It might be connected. And another fun thing that I did when I first started journaling, I got a bunch of colored pens. If I was really struggling and having a really bad day, I'd use a red pen and I would just write in red because it was, that's how I felt. And if we had a really good day, I might write in purple or blue, or I kind of associated different colored pens with my emotion for the day. So that was kind of another avenue to access my creativity and my emotions. And yes, there were tears on the page at times. There was rips in the page there, but it was mine. It was mine. It was my time to release and acknowledge Donna, to acknowledge my emotions, my feelings. In my husband's circle of care, nobody really ever sat me down and said, well, Donna, how are you doing? Like, what do you need? And I know I would probably say, oh, no, everything's fine. I'm doing okay. We're doing great. Because I didn't want to show that I had needs. And so my goal is for you to have this new access to your journaling, to connect with your soul, who you are within yourself, because life gets chaotic and you lose sight of and that connection with who you are. And what will others think? Other people don't need to know that you're journaling. And as you journal, people will actually realize that you're probably coping better because you're able to put your emotions and words into print and be able to get more clarity on maybe what you need to adjust in your daily life to accommodate your time for yourself. But in accommodating for that, you're feeling more balanced because you are looking after yourself and creating a foundational practice for yourself. And 10 minutes, you can make time for 10 minutes. And I'll say here too, once I got a little familiar with journaling, I had a journal in my car, I had a journal in my purse, I had a journal at home, because if I was at the ball game and I had a few minutes and I had a thought and I was inspired to write something, I'd write it down. If I was out at lunch and I had 10 minutes after work, or at work at lunch hour, I would go and write it down. The benefits of journal writing. As you become more familiar with your journal and the time simply focused on your thoughts, you will look forward to this ritual. You will experience many benefits if you commit to the daily practice. Connecting with yourself daily, gaining clarity on what you may be struggling with, solutions to navigate your ever-changing life, supporting the transitions through the stages of caregiving, grief, and rebuilding life after loss. Discovering a tool that supports your mental health, you will have more focus and energy to support yourself and your loved ones. And I found this very important for me when my husband had to go into long-term care. I had to realize that I just didn't have any more to give to my husband on a full-time basis, but he could go into long-term care from Monday to Thursday, and I would bring him home on Friday to Sunday. So we still had family time. And then I had time to create new foundational practices of actually sleeping through the night and eating a little better and exercise. It wasn't an easy transition, but in the end, the transition ended up being quite positive because my husband gained a new family within the St. Mary's environment, because there was activity and there were people and there were things that he got involved in. We lived in the country, and the only person he saw during the day was a couple of support care workers. So his life opened up as well, because I made the step to journal, to look after myself, which created a transition for him. But it really supported our family in a much better way. We had less time together, but it was certainly more quality. We had fun on weekends. I was rested. The kids were rested, and we did lots of fun activities, going to ball games and such. So I'd like to take the next 5 minutes or so, and if you have a journal with you or a piece of paper, you can just get it out, and I'll give you an example of what it's like to do a journal entry. I always date my page, and I start with a statement of gratitude, just because I'm grateful for every day when you're caregiving for someone and you see their difficulties and what they've gone through. I feel gratitude because I have my mobility, I have my speech, I have my swallowing, I have my memories. So I always start the day with a thank you for a new day, thank you for the sun. It can be very simple. I just like to start out my journaling with a thank you. In the beginning, you can have a few go-to questions that you answer every day. How do I feel today? What can I do for myself today? What are the thoughts in my head today? Write in your journal what comes to mind. There's no right or wrong in journaling. It's your journal. It's your description. It's your private record. You may find you are more comfortable making a list of words, phrases, or complete sentences. Just depends on how you are in your everyday life. Some people are like to write, and other people are list makers. You'll find that in time, you'll be able to sit and simply let the thoughts release and out onto the blank page. Give it a try. And my hope is that you will learn to really enjoy this process of journaling, and it will take you through the rest of your life, whether it's through the stages of your caregiving or after caregiving, and you're going through the grief and the loss, and then picking up the pieces and trying to create a new life without your loved one. As I was out for my walk this morning, I walk 2 hours every day in the morning, and I had a little thought in my head, so I thought I'd end today with something I wrote this morning. Pen and paper. I take a deep breath today to start to journal. My thoughts that come and go now have a place to show. Within these blank pages, I will release my feelings, fears, and joys. A new path to self-care and awakening. A conversation with my soul will guide me today and tomorrow. Exhale to a new journey with pen and paper. I thank you so much for giving me the time to share with you today. And I will answer any questions that you have. Just put in the chat there, and I'll see if I can answer. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Donna. And maybe what we can do is as you've given everyone an opportunity to get started, take a few minutes to try, as Donna had mentioned, to try the journaling process, and using the bullet points that you see here, maybe take a couple of minutes to try some writing. And as you're doing so, please, in the chat, if you want to make comments about how you're feeling, how it's helping you, and of course, any other questions you might have, we'll give you a moment and to try to use this time to journal as well. So thank you again, Donna, for presenting and sharing today. We definitely have some time for questions from our audience now. So if I know that I've already seen some questions come up, but please, if you have more questions for our presenter, please continue to put them in the chat box. And as we mentioned, continue to practice as you see those bullet points here, how to journal. And it's a good opportunity if you do have those questions to ask Donna while we're here. The first question that I have, Donna, for you is the question for one of the first questions that came out was, what was your process at the beginning more than just a to-do list for that day, or did you start writing something of a little more content?
Originally, it was more just getting to the comfortableness to sit still and to write. And then with the writing, it wasn't it was a to-do list in the beginning in the sense that I would write that, but then as I released that, other thoughts came in, and then it would evolve into, I'm feeling really anxious today. I'm frustrated, we can't get the, whatever was going on. I would start to release that quite quickly. It wasn't, it did give me in the beginning, I wasn't sure of what to write. And that's why it, the first week or two, it was like, I have to do this, I have to do that. And then I was able, after I was saying that, I would say, well, I would allow the thoughts to come and then acknowledge those thoughts. So as I said, they couldn't be random. They don't have to link together. It just evolves. And that's how it really began. And I was struggling it was quite a difficult time. So I think the therapist just said just to really let go of the emotions that I was trying to hold back, which you try to hold back, and it takes a little practice to release.
Thank you, Donna. Question number 2. So glad you said the fear of someone reading your journal. As one caregiver had mentioned, I always have that feeling. And so you bring the same journal everywhere with you, or do you have different journal books with you? As you mentioned, you'd have one in the car or one on the go, maybe in your purse. So it's not a continuation of what you wrote the day before, for instance. And she or he, I'm not sure. I apologize for the pronoun. But did the caregiver understand you correctly? So is it not a continuation?
It's not a continuation. I just made sure I had a journal with me, and that I was able to release those thoughts. And when I was inspired to write, and because as I became more aware and more familiar with and comfortable with the journal writing, I looked forward to those times that I could journal. So it wasn't like I wanted to wait till the next morning to journal again in the same book. I was taking the opportunity to journal when I wanted or had the opportunity to. So I had a journal at home in my secret spot, and then the journal that I had in my purse or in the car. I mean, they were safe. It wasn't like people were going to read it, so my thought is that you can journal anywhere. And, if you like the outdoors and you like to be by water or just in your backyard, or you can take that journal and journal there. So it doesn't mean that you have to be in a specific chair. You can, whatever place gives you a sense of calm and safety. You feel safe that you can sit and journal.
Thank you, Donna. For the third question, does the type of journal book make a difference? So, for example, colorful cover, drawings on the pages, lines or no lines, etc.
It's a personal preference, I think. If you see a journal that really connects with you and and you feel, oh my gosh, I really love the cover of that journal, well, then you're connecting with that journal. So that would be a great journal. For me, I journal so much that, I mean, I go to the dollar store and, sometimes I buy just a notebook, and sometimes they're pretty journals. And, but in the beginning, I think if you gravitate to a journal that speaks to you in some way, then you have that comfort level too, that it's kind of a reflection of something that you love. As you can see on my book here in the picture, there's a monarch butterfly. So I associate monarch butterflies with my husband because we see them all the time. And I'm journaling at the lake in this picture. And that the year I produced this book, I was journaling at the lake, and a butterfly came to me. So I tend to gravitate to journals that have butterflies in nature, but it doesn't mean that it has to be that way. It's just giving you the book to write the blank pages so it can be in any form.
Thank you. We have some comments as well, which have come in. One comment, I love the different colored pens for different emotions. Actually, I did as well. I thought that really spoke to the idea of how we have different, feelings and emotions. And another question was, is this book in stores, Donna?
Yes, you can get it on Amazon, both of them, the workbook and the journal. I have some workbooks and journals here at home, and I have a website that you can order it from. I've also, on my website, I've got some blog there, some writings that I had written over the last little while. And in my workbook, I'd like to share as well that they're not, with every worksheet, it's not a journal entry, it's more a creative writing as a reflection of what I'd experienced. And I tried to, because I saved quite a few of those, I tried to attach one with every worksheet. So it's a very personal book for me, because you'll be reading what I was feeling and the emotions and what I was going through as I was going through my healing process in the book.
Thank you. Another comment, I found it helpful to ask myself, what am I most worried about? So that was, I think, something that will speak to many caregivers as well. And another comment, I sometimes worry that journaling will focus on negative emotions. So Donna, maybe you can speak to those.
Well, that's the beauty of journaling, is that you get to reflect on the negative emotions, because they're there, and they're there for a reason, because you're feeling that intense grief, guilt, overwhelmed, and that's how you can acknowledge it and not keep it bottled in and pushed down. And the more you push down, you don't acknowledge it, and that's where you risk caregiver burnout, and where you risk losing yourself, because you're not allowing your inner voice to be heard, which it needs to be heard.
Thank you, Donna. And another comment and then question, it was so true about emotions equaling E plus motion. So energy in motion, and energy that needs to come out of the body. As this writer had mentioned, for me, journaling is a helpful way to identify, acknowledge, allow, and release my myriad emotions while exploring my inner world. Me time is healthy selfishness.
That's right.
And yeah, and so the question that came out after as well was, how long would you typically journal? So for example, 30 minutes, how long would be a typical journal moment?
It's in the beginning, it was 10, 15 minutes when I could grab the time. And then as my caregiver role evolved and changed, when my husband went to long-term care, then I had more time. So then my journaling tended to get a little longer, because I had more time to spend with self-care and my foundational practices. So then my journaling became longer. And 20 years in, like some days I'll journal 10 pages, and some days I'll journal, a page. It's a personal everyone will be unique. Everyone will be different on how long they journal. There is no right or wrong to journal like a page or 5 pages, or it's really whatever you need to say in that day, and how you'll know when you're finished within the journaling, because you won't have any more thoughts to write down.
Thank you for that. Another comment and tip, I find myself writing emails to myself as journal entries, sometimes if I'm out and about. So that actually is a really interesting idea, right? Emailing yourself. What do you think about that, Donna?
Yeah, that's a great idea, to email yourself. And also what I did actually this morning, I was out for a walk and I had my phone with me. So I actually did a voice memo. So I was kind of journaling while I was out for a walk, and then I came back and put it into print. So you can do that as well. If you're just out in nature and you just want to release your emotions and thoughts, you could use your phone and record it. And then when you get home, then you write it out, because then you're actually having the process of writing pen to paper. So you can just put it on your phone as well.
That is great. Such a lot of great ideas, a lot of great comments, tips, questions coming in. Another question, Donna, I have a question. When something happens and emotions are flooding, should we write those feelings at the moment?
Yes, if you have the ability to do that, if you have the space and you feel safe to do that, you're by yourself, you can have your journaling, you can release those emotions. I mean, that's great, because when they're flooding, that's a good way to let them out. And then you're not in a position where you're in the midst of that high energy, that moment that you may extend that energy to your loved one, or because you're in the midst of your own emotions. So it's a good release. Only though, if you feel comfortable in that moment, if it's like in the book, I kind of touch on this. It's called, when you're the arc of intensity, when your emotions get really high, and we really need to take a deep breath and sit back and relax and remove ourselves for a second, just to release that energy, so that we can come to that place, that conversation, that whatever you're dealing with, in a more calm way. And if that means writing at that moment, then yes, for sure, write.
Thank you. Another question, I think a follow-up to what we were talking about with emails. One of our participants today had said they created a second email address that I send to myself, with a comforting auto reply that I receive when I email that address.
Oh, that's excellent. Yeah. See, I never thought of that. That would have been great when I was caregiving. But then again, I worked on it. I was an admin assistant, so I worked on a computer 8 hours a day. So when I got home, a computer wasn't what I was looking at. But I mean, if that works for others, that's wonderful. That's a great idea. Yeah.
Thank you, Donna. And please, if some of you have been, writing your own journals at this point right now, or writing down some of your thoughts, please feel free to share your emotions and how you're feeling, how you're feeling, why you're feeling this way, and also what you can do for yourself today. Those are the questions that we want to leave with you. Oh, I have another question that just popped up, or a comment. It's challenging to do when I'm showering, remembering my thought bubbles, and I very much agree that journaling is very cathartic. Like a beach ball, emotions need or must be allowed to surface, otherwise suppressed emotions will leak out. Sadly and regretfully, not necessarily in a nice way, right? For example, in a respectful manner. I view my emotions as my inner guidance system, my IGS. They guide me to my needs and wants if I'm paying close attention. So Donna, maybe you can speak to that as well.
Oh, that's true. And then the thing when you're in caregiving, we get so used to putting all our energy into our loved ones, that we don't hear the little voice within us. We don't hear those little nigglings, I need to take a break, or I'm feeling overwhelmed and I need to step back. So yes, the journaling introduces you to what I call conversations with my soul. It introduces you to yourself again, that soul within you that looks, from you're looking out of your eyes. That's your soul. You're human. Your body's your body. Your soul is unique to you. And when we're caregiving and giving, we kind of just lose that conversation with our soul. And as I said, that's risks caregiver burnout, because you lose yourself. You lose connection with yourself, and it's difficult to then try to reconnect with yourself. Plus, you still have your love for your loved one and your caregiving, and you're wanting to give in as much as you can to them, and but also understanding you have to give to yourself as well.
Thanks, Donna. And just another comment. I love that you said that you will know when you're finished the journaling. I think a few people have mentioned that as well, a few folks. And as I think about this, then to trust oneself and the process in that moment, in how long it will be with regards to journal writing. I think any final thoughts before we close out today's webinar?
Well, I think just don't put pressure on yourself. You're already overwhelmed with life and responsibilities. So journaling is your time to just be still, release emotions. Don't put a time limit on it. Just be in the moment. Just let it flow, let it evolve. And if you commit to doing this and you're finding that this is going to be a part of your everyday life, it's just going to evolve on its own anyway, because the more you are familiar with it, the more confidence you get within yourself and listening to your thoughts, it's just going to naturally evolve. So the main thing is just not to put pressure on yourself. This is supposed to be a time for you to just not have to be following a specific path. It's just for you to spend time with yourself.
Thank you for that. I think that's invaluable information today, and hopefully, as I said, lots of great comments that came through, lots of great ideas and wonderful questions. So thank you again, Donna, for presenting and sharing, and you shared such wonderful information about journal writing, and thank you for being so open and sharing your personal experiences as a caregiver. It's great to learn about these tools for self-care, which are so important for caregivers.